So I'm here in Causeway Bay in a local market. Now, as you can see, the hustle and bustle is back. It's business as usual here in Hong Kong. Now, before I head off to the airport, I'm just going to take a moment just to reflect and explain to you what I've witnessed here over the weekend reporting on the Hong Kong protests. When we arrived here on Saturday and hit the streets, we saw unplanned protests spark across the city. They often turned violent, and it seemed like absolute mayhem. Now, the next day, we witnessed totally different scenes. Most media outlets around the world are reporting that 1.7 million people attended the rally that we'd reported on Sunday afternoon here in Hong Kong. It was very hard from our perspective to be able to actually verify the numbers. I would estimate between 700 to 1.5 million people on the street. But if you think about it, that's 1 in 8 Hong Kongers hit the streets on that day. And I think that that rally was very, very significant for a number of reasons. One, it shows broad support. This is 12 weeks after the initial rallies, protests sparked here in Hong Kong. And it showed the government, it sent a message to the Communist government of China that it's not going to let up, it's not going to fizzle away. I think that they were hoping it will. They were hoping with the pressure, with the police cracking down, with ignoring, trying every single tactic, that hopefully this protest movement will cave. Sunday demonstrated that there is no chance that is going to happen. In fact, it went further than that. It also demonstrated that the people of Hong Kong, the majority, support the cause, and most of them are peaceful. Now, even on the night before, where we did see the violence break out, I would put it down to, there is one thing that we see across the board when violence sparks. There is one common denominator, and it is when police are there. Now, when we attended the protests on Saturday, we noticed that even those protesters that China are trying to demonize and make out to be these violent thugs, painting them as the sort of Antifa of Hong Kong. One thing we noticed, myself and my cameraman, as we walked through the crowd, is that these people were polite, they were nice, they were very concerned. Most of them asking us if we had helmet or face masks to protect ourselves. Coming from a very concerned perspective. And I've been to rallies around the world for all sorts of different causes. I've never met a more polite and caring people. There is no way that these rallies, these protests will turn violent unless they are provoked. And on Sunday, it was proven. Not one police officer, we did not witness one police officer at the rally of what the most of the media around the world are describing as 1.7 million people demonstrating. Not one police officer. In fact, the only time we've seen police, and I've asked a few of the locals here why, the only time we've seen police is on Saturday night, where the protests turned into mayhem and looked like they were going to get very violent and aggressive. And there was another rally where it was set up by pro-communist group, where about 10 or 15 police in uniform police were there, seemed very calm. They were amongst friends. At the other rally, they were in full riot gear. Otherwise, walking the streets, you do not see any uniformed police, and the locals tell me that the reason for that is since the protests have sparked, law enforcement here has turned from exactly that, law enforcement, to at one point when the protests first started about 12 weeks ago, it was intimidation, violence, it was tear gas, to now police have stepped back and have caved to what is local pressure. Most people here, whether they support a lot of the protesters that attend the Saturday night or not, they support the cause, and they blame police for a lot of the escalation, and I can understand why. So police have taken this stance. In fact, they've barricaded most police stations. A lot of their talking points are now that they are the victims and they are only responding to violent protesters. But nothing could be further from the truth. The fact is that we've been at these protests, we've seen these so-called violent protesters. They come ready for for escalation, but as we've seen over the last 3 months, it has gone to tear gas. People have had their heads smacked in by the batons. You've had one woman who's lost her eyes. So the escalation of violence here in Hong Kong often starts with the police, and the fact is that when you look at it, when police do not attend protests, there is no violence. You see unbelievable crowds of people, in fact opening. You see crowds where we could literally not walk out. You're talking about hundreds of thousands of people where it takes you about an hour to walk 100 meters. But when emergency services try to come in, when an ambulance comes in, it parts ways like the Red Sea in the Bible. Unbelievable scenes, and these people are just genuinely nice, but they care about the country, about democracy, and that's what they are fighting for. In summary, I don't think this is the last we're going to hear of the Hong Kong protests. I think most people here are going to continue protesting until their 5 demands, their reasonable demands, are all met. I think that most people here support the sentiment from Donald Trump, the strong stance to the communist government that if you escalate to violence, there will be no trade deal. At the same time, when they hear statements from the European Union and the Trudeau governments in Canada, which are comparing and equating the protesters to the Chinese Communist government, somehow making them equal, that they both need to de-escalate, I don't think that is helpful. I think that gets people here a little bit more anxious to fight for their democracy, to fight for their rights. So before I head off, I just want to thank each and every one of you who helped make it possible by crowdfunding this important project. Make sure to go to Hong Kong Reports to see all the stories, all the videos I've filed, and still a chance to help crowdfund this independent journalism. It's been an absolute experience. Avi Yemini from TR.News here in Hong Kong for Rebel Media. Thank you very much. Avi Yemini here from TR News. I'm here in Hong Kong to document the brave citizens of this city who are fighting for their democracy against communist China. Please visit Hong Kong Reports to view all my videos. And while you're there, please consider chipping in a few dollars to help crowdfund this important independent journalism. Thank you.